The number one reason people fail in life is not the lack of talent, nor the absence of opportunities, or even the scarcity of resources. It's something far more profound and destructive. It's the complete lack of respect for oneself. And let me tell you something Carl Jung discovered after decades of studying the depths of the human psyche. If you do not respect yourself, the world will treat you exactly as you treat yourself. The world is a flawless mirror of your self-image. What I'm about to share with you can transform not only the way you see yourself, but also how the entire world responds to your presence. Years ago, Jung spoke about a man who felt invisible his entire life. People interrupted him when he spoke. No one took his ideas seriously, his family took him for granted, and the worst part was that he believed he deserved it. But everything changed when he began to embody the principles of self-respect. 6 months later, he found himself with new confidence, new respect, and a new life. The world hadn't changed. He had. And that is precisely what will happen to you if you listen carefully to what follows. Because what you are about to hear is not theory. It's the result of deep psychological exploration into the mechanisms of self-worth, human behavior, and transformation. This works, always, when you apply it correctly. Respect yourself, or the world will crush you. Let's begin with a fundamental truth that can shift your entire inner paradigm. You teach people how to treat you. Every word you speak, every decision you make, every action you take is a signal sent to the world about how much you believe you are worth. The problem is that most people send the wrong signals without realizing it. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you allowed someone to cross your boundaries just to avoid conflict? How often have you placed everyone else's needs above your own until you are completely drained? Every time you do that, you are teaching the world that you don't respect yourself. And when you fail to respect yourself, you silently grant others permission to do the same. It's a psychological law, inevitable and without exception. But here's the good news. Just as you've taught people not to respect you, you can re-educate them to do so. Yet this begins within. It starts with what Jung called the revolution of the inner self, an awakening of inner authority. When I began my own journey, I was at the bottom, broke, lost, invisible to the world. But I made a single decision that changed everything. I decided that no matter my circumstances, I would treat myself with absolute respect. I would speak to myself with dignity, hold myself to high standards, and honor the promises I made to my own soul. I would care for my mind, my body, and my spirit as if they were sacred, because they are. And here's the fascinating part. When I changed how I treated myself, the world changed how it treated me. Opportunities appeared, people began to listen, and doors that had long been shut began to open. Not because the world suddenly became kind, but because I changed the signal I was sending. Now let's explore how this transformation works psychologically. Your mind contains a mechanism called the reticular activating system. It acts as a filter that decides what information reaches your awareness, and this filter is programmed by your self-image. If your self-image says you are worthy of respect, your mind begins to notice and attract experiences that confirm that belief. But if your self-image says you are undeserving, your mind will filter in the opposite direction, reinforcing your own lack of worth. So, how do you reprogram your self-image? It starts with brutal self-honesty. You must take inventory of your life and identify every place where you are failing to respect yourself. Be honest, painfully honest. Are you in a relationship where you are constantly diminished? In a job where your value is ignored? Surrounded by friends who only appear when they need something from you? Are you neglecting your physical health, ignoring your dreams? Your subconscious already knows where you have betrayed yourself, but until you consciously face it, you cannot change it. Jung once described a woman who lived 25 years in a relationship where she was constantly criticized, dismissed, and made to feel small. When asked why she stayed, she said she feared being alone, that this was the best she could ever have, and that leaving would mean admitting she had wasted her life. But every day she stayed, she reinforced the belief that she was unworthy of more. She was trapped, not by her partner, but by her own lack of self-respect. When she finally walked away, everything began to shift. Years later, she found someone who treated her with the respect she had always deserved, but only after she learned to respect herself first. This brings us to the second fundamental principle. Self-respect requires courage, not comfort. Most people choose the comfort of the familiar, even when it's painful, over the discomfort of the unknown, even when it holds the possibility of freedom. That is why so many remain in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and patterns that slowly destroy them. The path of transformation begins when you dare to choose yourself, not from arrogance, but from a deep understanding that your worth is not negotiable. Because as Jung taught, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. But let me tell you something I've learned after studying the psychology of some of the most accomplished human beings to ever walk this planet. Every truly successful person has had to make uncomfortable, even painful decisions just to remain in alignment with themselves. They've had to say no when it was far easier to say yes. They've had to walk away from toxic situations, even when fear whispered that they would lose everything. They've had to draw boundaries that cost them relationships. They've had to stand up for themselves even when it led to conflict. And here lies a profound truth that Carl Jung would emphasize. Every time you choose courage over comfort, your self-respect expands. And every time you choose comfort over courage, it withers. It's that simple and that powerful. Now let's move to the third principle, which Jung considered essential to individuation. Self-respect manifests through your personal standards. The standards you hold for yourself are the external reflection of your inner sense of worth. And here lies the real problem. Most people don't have standards. They have hopes. They have wishes. They have preferences, but no sacred, non-negotiable standards. Let me give you a clear example. If you hold the standard that your body is sacred and deserves care, you won't try to exercise when you have time. You'll make movement a non-negotiable ritual. If your standard is that your mind deserves nourishment, you won't waste hours consuming meaningless entertainment. If your standard is that you deserve relationships rooted in mutual respect, you will not tolerate abuse, no matter the form it takes. Do you see the difference? Standards are the invisible lines that define your essence. They are declarations carved into the soul, saying who you are and what you allow into your reality. When you establish real standards and uphold them with integrity, something alchemical happens. You become unstoppable. I remember when I made the decision to set a standard of excellence in my own work. I told myself, everything that comes from me will be of the highest quality possible. No exceptions. In the beginning, it meant long hours. It meant saying no to projects that didn't align with that ideal. It meant investing in my growth, even when it seemed irrational. But I stayed loyal to that inner law. Over time, That standard became my reputation, and my reputation became my greatest asset. Now reflect on your own life. Do you have clear standards for how people are allowed to speak to you? Do you have standards for how you spend your time? Do you have standards for the quality of your creations, for the kind of person you are becoming? Because if you don't, you're drifting without direction, letting the external world and the opinions of others steer your destiny. And that, as Jung would say, is the opposite of self-realization. Now comes the fourth principle. Self-respect is expressed through your inner dialogue. The way you speak to yourself is the way you treat your own soul. Yet most people talk to themselves in ways they would never allow from anyone else. They call themselves failures. They tell themselves they're not enough. They attack their own being for every mistake and constantly compare their lives to others, always finding themselves lacking. This Jung would describe as psychic violence, a subtle but destructive form of self-abuse. And until you stop it, you will never cultivate true self-respect. Let me give you a simple but powerful technique I've taught to countless people. The best friend rule. Every time you catch yourself engaging in negative self-talk, ask, would I say this to my best friend? If the answer is no, then don't say it to yourself. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between a joke and a command. Every word you speak to yourself becomes a suggestion that the psyche begins to believe. So if you keep repeating, I'm a failure, your subconscious will begin to look for evidence to prove it. If you keep saying, I'm not enough, you will unconsciously sabotage your own progress to remain consistent with that belief. But here's the exciting part. This law works both ways. If you begin to speak to yourself with respect, affirmation, and encouragement, your subconscious will start seeking evidence that you are capable, valuable, and deserving. You'll begin to act in ways that align with this new self-image. So from now on, I want you to make this commitment with me. Speak to yourself as if you were your own wisest and most compassionate mentor, because that is exactly what you must become. Carl Jung taught that the voice we use to talk to ourselves shapes the entire structure of our psyche. The words you repeat become the symbols that form your inner world. The fifth principle is this. Self-respect requires that you keep the promises you make to yourself. It's one of the most powerful, yet most underestimated ways of building inner strength. Each time you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you send a profound message to your unconscious. My words have value. My commitments mean something. I can trust myself. But every time you make a promise and break it, you send the opposite message. I can't rely on myself. My word is empty. I lack discipline. And that's where the problem lies. Most people make grand promises they never truly intend to keep. I'll lose 20 kilos this year. I'll write that book. I'll start that business. And when they inevitably fail to follow through, their self-respect erodes a little more each time. The solution isn't to stop making promises. It's to make smaller promises and keep them religiously. If you want to lose 20 kilos, don't promise to transform your body in 3 months. Promise yourself you'll walk for 20 minutes today. Then do it. Tomorrow, make the same promise and keep it again. Over time, these small, fulfilled promises build a solid foundation of self-trust and self-respect. You become someone who can depend on themselves, and when you can depend on yourself, your entire life begins to transform. Now let me share the sixth principle, one that will challenge many of you. Self-respect means protecting your energy relentlessly. Your energy, not your time or your money, is your most sacred resource. It is your life force, the essence of your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual vitality. And right now, there are people, situations, and activities in your life draining that energy without giving anything back. You have people who are like emotional black holes. Every conversation with them leaves you exhausted, heavy, and negative. They don't give energy, they consume it. You have activities in your schedule that contribute nothing to your growth, your happiness, or your purpose. You say yes to these things out of guilt, obligation, or fear, not because you truly want to. You tolerate situations that keep you trapped in constant stress, anxiety, or frustration, convincing yourself that's just how life is. But let me be clear, allowing your energy to be drained without setting boundaries is not kindness, generosity, or goodness. It's a lack of self-respect. People who respect themselves guard their energy fiercely. They say no without guilt. They walk away from negativity without needing to explain. They remove what doesn't serve them without apologizing. And as a result, they have the strength and clarity to invest their energy in what truly matters: their growth, their meaningful relationships, their dreams, and their inner peace. Now imagine this. What would your life look like if you reclaimed all the energy you're currently wasting on things that don't matter? What could you create? What could you achieve? Who could you become? Here comes the seventh principle, and this one is profound. Self-respect requires defending your truth, even when it's unpopular. We live in a culture where there's immense pressure to conform, to blend in, to avoid making waves. As a result, millions of people live lives that do not reflect who they truly are. They wear masks, say what others want to hear, and hide their real opinions, values, and beliefs out of fear of rejection or conflict. But here's the devastating truth. Every time you betray your truth to be accepted by others, you betray yourself. And that inner betrayal destroys your self-respect faster than anything else. Jung said that the greatest tragedy of the modern soul is to live a life that does not belong to you. I once knew a man who spent 20 years in corporate finance because that's what his family expected of him. But his true passion was music. Finally, at 45, he had the courage to admit his truth, not just to his family, but to himself. He left his corporate job and began teaching music. His income dropped drastically. His family criticized him. His friends thought he was going through a midlife crisis. But he told me something I will never forget. Carl Jung once said that the greatest act of self-respect is to live in alignment with your inner truth. For the first time in my adult life, I finally understand what that means. I respect myself because I'm living according to who I truly am, not who others thought I should be. That is the true power of standing by your own truth. It's not easy, it's rarely comfortable, and yes, you may lose some relationships along the way, but what you gain in return is infinitely more valuable. Your integrity, your authenticity, your self-respect. So ask yourself, where in your life are you living a lie? Where are you pretending to be someone you're not? Where are you hiding from your truth? And most importantly, how much is that costing you in terms of your own respect? Jung taught that self-respect is not a fixed state, but a living force that grows with inner expansion. The moment you stop growing, you begin to die. Not physically, at least not immediately, but spiritually and emotionally. When growth stops, self-respect decays, because deep inside, you know you're not living up to your potential. People who truly respect themselves are committed to continuous growth. They read, they learn, They challenge their own limits. They step beyond comfort over and over again. They invest in their personal and spiritual development, not to prove anything to the world, but to prove something to themselves, that they are capable of becoming more than what they currently are. And here lies something beautiful. Every time you learn something new, every time you develop a new skill, every time you overcome a challenge, your self-respect expands because you're showing yourself that you are capable of evolution, transformation, and excellence. Let me ask you, when was the last time you did something for the first time? When was the last time you learned something new? When was the last time you challenged yourself in a meaningful way? If it's been months or years, it's no wonder your self-respect feels low. Deep down, you know you've been settling. You know you've been playing small. You know there's more within you, waiting to be expressed. Put this into practice now. Commit to learning something new this week. Read a book about a subject that fascinates you. Take an online course. Practice a skill that intimidates you. It doesn't matter what you choose. What matters is that you move, that you grow, that you evolve. Now, the next principle, self-respect, requires that you care for your body as the sacred temple that it is. It is the vessel through which you experience life itself, the container of your mind, your heart, and your spirit. The way you treat your body is a direct reflection of how much you value and respect yourself. When you neglect your body with toxic foods, lack of movement, poor rest, or harmful habits, you're sending a very clear message that you've forgotten your own worth. My well-being doesn't matter. My health isn't a priority. My body doesn't deserve to be cared for. But when you treat your body with respect, when you feed it nourishing food, when you move it regularly, when you give it the rest it needs, when you keep it strong and functional, you are sending an entirely different message. I value myself. My health matters. I deserve to feel good in my body. And let me tell you something from my own experience. When you begin to care for your body, everything else in your life begins to improve as well. You gain more energy, more mental clarity, more confidence, and more discipline that naturally spills over into every other area of your existence. You don't need to become a professional athlete. You don't need the perfect body. That's not what Carl Jung was referring to when he spoke of the unity between body and soul. What matters is that you treat your body with the basic respect it deserves. Walking every day, eating real food instead of processed products, getting enough sleep, staying hydrated, going to medical checkups. These are practical and tangible ways of telling your unconscious mind, I am worth caring for. And every time you do it, your self-respect strengthens. Carl Jung taught that the way we treat our physical form is a reflection of how we treat our inner being. The 10th principle is that self-respect means forgiving yourself for your past mistakes. This is one of the greatest barriers for most people. They carry guilt, shame, and regret for things they did years or even decades ago. And that heavy burden destroys their self-respect because they keep punishing themselves for who they were instead of honoring who they are becoming. But let me tell you something with absolute certainty. You cannot build an exceptional future while being chained to a past filled with self-judgment. You cannot respect yourself while constantly reminding yourself of your failures, your mistakes, your embarrassing moments. Forgiving yourself does not mean justifying your past behavior. It means recognizing that you were a different person back then, with a different level of consciousness, different circumstances, different tools. It means learning from those experiences without remaining trapped in them. It means granting yourself permission to evolve. Jung often said that transformation begins the moment you accept your shadow, the hidden part of you that carries your wounds and regrets. I've known people who have done terrible things in their past, things they deeply regret, but those who managed to transform their lives were the ones who could say, "Yes, I did that. I regret it deeply. I've learned from it, and now I'm a different person. I will not allow that past mistake to define my future." That kind of honesty requires immense courage, but it is also the only way to reclaim your self-respect after major errors. So, what are you still carrying from your past that you need to release? What mistakes do you finally need to forgive yourself for? What old shame is stealing your self-worth in the present? Pause for a moment and think about this right now. Then, make the conscious decision to let it go. Not because what you did was right, but because continuing to punish yourself serves no one, especially not you. Now let me share the 11th principle, and this one is profoundly transformative. Self-respect flourishes in productive solitude. We live in an era of constant distraction. People are so attached to their devices, so consumed by noise, so surrounded by external stimulation that they have completely lost contact with themselves. And when you lose touch with yourself, you lose self-respect, because you no longer know who you are beneath all the expectations, roles, and masks. Those who possess deep self-respect make regular time for solitude, not lonely isolation, but intentional solitude. Time alone to think, reflect, process, reconnect with their values, evaluate their direction, and listen to their inner wisdom. This practice of productive solitude allows you to ask the essential questions that your unconscious has been waiting for you to hear. It's in that silence, free from noise and comparison, that you begin to meet the real you, the one Jung said is not the mask you show the world, but the soul that has been patiently waiting for you to return home. Am I living in alignment with my values? Are my actions consistent with my words? Am I truly becoming the person I aspire to be? Am I honoring myself in every area of my life? Without this constant self-reflection, we don't live consciously, we merely react to existence. And as Carl Jung taught, one cannot achieve true self-respect while living in a reactive state. Therefore, make this commitment to yourself. Create regular moments of solitude in your life. It could be early in the morning before the world awakens, a quiet walk at the end of the day, or a personal retreat once a month. The structure doesn't matter. What matters is that you make space for it, because it's in those moments of stillness that your true self begins to speak. Listening to that inner voice is one of the deepest acts of self-respect a person can perform. Self-respect, Jung would say, is expressed through the boundaries you establish. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep others away. They are frameworks designed to preserve your psychological integrity. They are clear declarations of what is acceptable and what is not within your reality. After decades of observing the human psyche, Jung concluded that those who possess self-respect also possess strong boundaries. Those who lack self-respect either have none or constantly abandon them. Let's look at this clearly. If you decide your personal time is sacred, you don't answer work emails at midnight. If you decide that you deserve basic respect, you don't allow others to yell at you or speak to you with contempt. If you believe relationships must be reciprocal, you stop investing in those who are emotionally unavailable. But here lies the real challenge. Setting boundaries is simple. Maintaining them is where most people collapse. Because enforcing boundaries often demands uncomfortable conversations, creates tension, or leads to the loss of relationships. And many prefer betraying their own limits rather than facing discomfort. Yet every time they do, they betray themselves, and that silent betrayal slowly corrodes their self-worth. Those who truly respect themselves understand that maintaining boundaries is not optional. It is essential. They are willing to face conflict. They are willing to lose relationships that demand the sacrifice of their values. They are even willing to be misunderstood or disliked if that means staying true to their inner integrity. And as a result, they live lives aligned with their authentic essence. Lives that honor their needs, their values, and their well-being. Now, imagine if you began today, right now, to establish and protect clear boundaries. How would your life transform? Think about that deeply. Let me end with a final story. Years ago, I received a letter from a man, 58 years old. He wrote, "Carl Jung, I spent most of my life trying to earn the respect of my father, my boss, and my community. But it was never enough. There was always something more to prove, something more to achieve. I became exhausted and empty. Then I heard you say something that changed everything. The only respect that truly matters is the one you give yourself." In that moment, he realized that his endless pursuit of external validation came from the absence of inner validation. And from that awareness, everything began to change. That's the fundamental truth I want you to carry with you today. The outer world mirrors how you treat yourself. If you respect yourself deeply, the world will mirror that respect. If you value yourself, life will respond with value. If you set high standards for who you are, existence will rise to meet them. But it must begin with you. You must decide right now that you will treat yourself with absolute respect, that you will speak to yourself with kindness, that you will defend your limits, that you will keep your promises, that you will protect your energy, live your truth, and honor your body. Because when you do, you awaken the most sacred reflection of all. The world respecting you exactly as you respect yourself. You are going to forgive your past mistakes. You are going to keep growing. And when you do that consistently, day after day, week after week, month after month, something extraordinary will begin to unfold. You will transform into someone entirely different, someone who moves through the world with dignity, confidence, and quiet power. A person who no longer seeks validation from others because they have found an unshakable validation within. A person who the world naturally respects because they first learned to respect themselves. And let me tell you this journey never truly ends. Self-respect, as Carl Jung would remind us, is not a destination you arrive at. It is a daily practice, a continuous commitment, a conscious choice made moment by moment, situation by situation, decision by decision. There will be days when you fail, moments when you betray your own boundaries, times when you say yes when your soul wanted to say no. There will be nights when your inner voice turns harsh instead of compassionate. And that's okay, because self-respect is not about perfection. It's about direction. What truly matters is not that you never fall, but that when you realize you've strayed from your path, you find the courage to acknowledge it, the compassion to forgive yourself, and the strength to choose better next time. With each wiser choice, your self-respect grows stronger. With every boundary you hold firm, your confidence expands. With every promise you keep to yourself, your integrity deepens. With every act of self-care, your sense of worth becomes more profound. It's like building a muscle, At first, it's weak. Every repetition feels demanding, each effort conscious and deliberate. But if you persist, if you stay consistent, that muscle strengthens, and eventually, what once required tremendous effort becomes natural. It becomes effortless, instinctive, simply part of who you are. Now, before we finish, I want you to do something with me. I want you to make a decision, not a passing thought or a vague wish, but a genuine commitment. Think of one specific area in your life where you haven't been respecting yourself. Maybe it's a toxic relationship you've been tolerating. Maybe it's a job that's been draining your spirit. Maybe it's a destructive habit that's been harming your health. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Or perhaps it's a dream you've been postponing because fear has kept you paralyzed. Do you have it in mind? Good. Now here's what I want you to do. Decide right now that within the next 48 hours, you will take one concrete step to honor yourself in that area. It doesn't have to be a giant leap. In fact, it's better if it's a small but meaningful action. Something you can complete. Something that proves to yourself that your words carry weight, that your commitments matter, that you are taking back control of your life. Maybe it's making that difficult phone call. Maybe it's setting that boundary you've avoided for too long. Maybe it's signing up for that class, having that honest conversation, or simply writing on a piece of paper, "I deserve respect." Starting with my own, whatever it is, what truly matters is that you do it, because action is where transformation truly happens, not in knowledge, not in inspiration, not in good intentions, but in action itself. And when you finally take that action, you will feel something you may not have felt in a long time. Genuine pride in yourself. Not arrogant pride, but authentic pride. The deep satisfaction that comes from keeping your word to yourself, from honoring your worth, from respecting yourself enough to act. And that feeling will become your fuel. It will push you to take another action, and then another, and then another. And before you even realize it, your entire life will have changed, because you have changed. Now, if this message has resonated with you today, if you've felt something move within you, if you've recognized truths about yourself that you've been avoiding, then I want to ask you to do one more thing. Subscribe to this channel, because my commitment is to bring you consistent content that helps you reach your highest potential, to live with integrity, to build a life truly worth living. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future videos, because we will go deep into every aspect of personal success, productivity, leadership, relationships, financial prosperity, spiritual growth, everything you need to create an extraordinary life. But it all begins with self-respect. That is the foundation. Without that foundation, everything you build will be unstable, fragile, and vulnerable. But with that solid foundation of self-respect, you can build anything, face any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and create any result you desire in your life. Because when you profoundly respect yourself, when you recognize your inherent worth, when you defend your integrity without apology, you become an unstoppable force. The world has no choice but to respond with respect, because you've set the standard. And let me tell you something else. The world desperately needs people who respect themselves, because those who respect themselves respect others. Those who value themselves value others. Those who set healthy boundaries for themselves honor the boundaries of others. Those who speak kindly to themselves speak kindly to others. In other words, your self-respect is not just for you. It's a gift you give to the world. It's a form of leadership, a form of teaching, a form of inspiring others to do the same. Imagine a world where every person deeply respected themselves. What would that world look like? There would be less abuse, because people would refuse to be abused. There would be less manipulation, because people would not allow themselves to be manipulated. There would be less mediocrity, because people would not settle for less than what they're capable of. There would be more authenticity, more integrity, more excellence, more genuine love. That world begins with you. Your self-respect is your contribution to building that better world. So I'll leave you with this. Remember that you are one decision away from transforming your entire life. One decision, not 10, not 100, just one. The decision to respect yourself unconditionally from this moment forward. That decision will change everything. It will change how you talk to yourself. It will change what you tolerate in your relationships. It will change how you invest your time. It will change what kind of opportunities you attract. It will change how you respond to conflict, how you show up in the world. It will change your entire destiny. But that decision can only be made by one person. You. No one can make it for you. No one can give you self-respect. No one can force you to value yourself. It is your choice, your responsibility, your power. And if you are ready to make that decision, if you are ready to commit to your own worth, to defend your dignity, to live with unshakable integrity, then hear me when I say this. Welcome to your new life. A life where you are no longer a victim of circumstances, but a conscious creator of your own experience. A life where you no longer seek external validation, but radiate inner validation. A life where you no longer settle for crumbs, but claim the abundance you deserve. A life where you no longer play small, but expand into your full greatness. That life is waiting for you, not in the future, not when you have more money, not when you lose weight, not when you find the perfect job or partner. It's waiting for you now, today, in this very moment. Because self-respect is not something you earn, it's something you decide. And once you decide it, everything changes. So decide now, act today, and watch how the entire world begins to treat you differently. Not because the world changed, but because you changed the signal you are sending. Remember, respect yourself, or the world will crush you. It's that simple, that powerful, that true. The choice is yours. It always has been, and it always will be. Go forward. Make that decision. Live that decision. Be that decision. Your extraordinary life is waiting. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep your integrity, honor your worth, and never, ever settle for less than the absolute respect you deserve. This is Carl Jung, reminding you that within you, right now, lies everything you need to create the life you desire. All you have to do is recognize it, claim it, and respect it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for investing this time in yourself. That act alone is an act of self-respect, and it is the beginning of everything that comes next. Now go and respect yourself like never before. The world is waiting to see who you truly are once you finally give yourself permission to shine in all your magnitude. You're not here by accident. Something deep within you brought you to this video at this exact moment, and once you finish watching it, you'll understand why. Maybe more than once, you've asked yourself why. Despite giving your best, some people respond with indifference, abuse, or even contempt. You strive to be kind. You go out of your way to help. You treat others with respect. And yet, you keep encountering looks that dismiss your generosity or people who seem to take advantage of it. This isn't random. There's a deeper reason behind it, one rooted in psychology, philosophy, and the way humans interpret kindness. Today, you're going to discover 5 powerful reasons why your kindness sometimes leads others to disrespect you. Let's begin with the first and perhaps most misunderstood truth. Kindness without limits is often seen as weakness. When you're always kind, endlessly understanding, and constantly available to others, many people don't view it as a virtue. Instead, they interpret it as vulnerability. Psychology has a name for this. It's called the benevolence exploitation effect. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist, once said that the shadow, the hidden part of the human psyche, feeds on the things we fail to set boundaries around. When you always say yes, when you constantly put others' needs ahead of your own, when you bend over backwards not to upset anyone, a certain type of person begins to see you not as kind, but as easy to manipulate. The problem is deeply ingrained in human nature. There is a subconscious tendency in people to test boundaries, and if you never establish your own, they assume you don't have any. What begins as small favors or innocent requests can quickly spiral into outright exploitation. The people around you start expecting more and more, and giving less and less in return. Eventually, what was once seen as kindness becomes something they believe they're entitled to. This is not about being harsh or turning cold. It's about understanding that kindness without discernment opens the door to being used. It's about realizing that healthy relationships, whether personal, professional, or casual, require mutual respect. And respect is built not only on giving, but also on knowing when to say no. You see, many people aren't even fully aware they're taking advantage of you. They're simply responding to what your actions allow. And if you consistently show that your time, your energy, and even your dignity are available without condition, you inadvertently teach them that those things have no value. That's the hard truth. But there's a beautiful side to it too. Because once you begin to understand this dynamic, you gain the power to change it. You can be kind and strong at the same time. You can help others and protect yourself. You can give and still say no when you need to. And when you start doing that, something amazing happens. People begin to respect you, not just for what you give, but for who you are. This video isn't just about learning why people mistreat kindness. It's about reclaiming your strength, your dignity, and your self-worth. It's about realizing that your kindness is not the problem. The way others react to it is. And the solution lies not in changing who you are, but in standing firmly in your values, your worth, and your boundaries. Keep watching. What you're about to discover might change the way you see yourself and the world around you forever. Reason 2. Kindness awakens the hidden insecurities of others. When you are truly kind, without expecting anything in return, you unknowingly confront people with parts of themselves they often try to avoid. Your kindness acts like a mirror, a silent reflection that shows others what they lack, what they fear, and what they've buried deep inside. It forces them to look inward, to face their own wounds, their emotional limitations, and their inability to give without expecting something back. And the truth is, not everyone is ready for that. Many people have built emotional walls to survive, shaped by experiences of betrayal, abandonment, and pain. They've come to believe that the world is hostile, that nothing is given freely, that every act of kindness hides an agenda. So when they encounter someone who is sincerely kind, someone who gives without manipulation or malice, it disrupts their worldview. It confuses them. Their subconscious sees your behavior as a threat, not because you are dangerous, but because your light exposes their shadows. It makes them uncomfortable. And instead of facing that discomfort and asking themselves why it bothers them so much, they project those feelings outward. They attack, they dismiss, they mock. They might respond with sarcasm, with coldness, with passive aggression or open rejection, not because you've done something wrong, but because it's easier for them to discredit you than to confront their own contradictions. This reaction is not always conscious. Often it's automatic, a psychological defense mechanism that kicks in when something or someone challenges the beliefs they've held onto for years. If you can be generous, sincere, and kind without expecting anything in return, then maybe they could too. But instead of embracing that possibility, they label your kindness as naivety, or worse, as weakness. Why? Because it's easier to pretend that your goodness is foolish than to admit that maybe they've armored themselves unnecessarily. It's easier to mock what they don't understand than to admit they might be wrong. Ironically, the people who despise you the most for your kindness are often those who wish, deep down, that they could be like you. But they don't know how. They've spent so long trying to protect themselves from disappointment, from hurt, from vulnerability, that they've forgotten what it's like to give freely. They've buried their softness beneath layers of cynicism, mistrust, and emotional self-preservation. So when your kindness appears, it threatens to unravel everything they've built to feel safe. Their reaction, therefore, isn't really about you. It's about what you awaken in them. When someone disrespects you for being kind, they're not actually seeing you. They're seeing the reflection of their own inner struggle. They are confronted with the uncomfortable truth that they've chosen hardness where softness was possible, that they've lived in suspicion when trust could have existed, that they've closed themselves off when openness might have led to healing. In order to maintain their illusion of control, they twist your intentions. They say you're pretending. They say you're weak. They turn your strength into a flaw so they don't have to ask themselves the hard questions. And this denial can show up in many ways, through mockery, indifference, avoidance, or even aggression. But at the root of it all, what they're truly rejecting is not your kindness itself, but the painful awareness of what they're missing. By laughing at you, they convince themselves that their way of seeing the world is still the right one, that kindness is dangerous, that vulnerability is foolish, that generosity is a trap. They tell themselves that only the hardened survive. But no matter how much they scoff or push you away, the truth remains untouched. Kindness is not weakness. It is strength. It is courage. And it terrifies them. Not because of what it is, but because of what it reveals. Kindness asks nothing in return, but it reveals everything. It exposes the false armor people wear. It challenges their beliefs about what it means to be strong. It invites them to consider another way of living, one based not on fear, but on connection. And while not everyone will accept that invitation, your presence still plants a seed. Even if they reject you now, your kindness has made an impact. It has shown them, even for a brief moment, that there is another way to exist in the world. So don't let their rejection harden you. Don't let their coldness make you question your warmth. Your ability to remain kind in the face of misunderstanding is not only rare, it's transformative. What you do, how you show up, matters more than you think. You are not the problem. Their reaction isn't your burden to carry. You simply remind them of the parts of themselves they're not ready to see. and that is a powerful thing. Reason 3. Your kindness challenges societal expectations. We live in a world where cynicism, competitiveness, and emotional detachment are often considered strengths, while compassion, vulnerability, and kindness are dismissed as signs of weakness. Society has unconsciously created unwritten rules that encourage people to protect themselves, to rise to success even if it means stepping on others, and to avoid showing too much emotion, especially if those emotions reveal weakness or empathy. So, when someone like you chooses kindness over calculation, when you choose to be guided by your heart instead of your ego, you disrupt the entire system. You challenge the norms. You make people uncomfortable, not because what you do is wrong, but because it reveals something deeply rooted in others, the parts of themselves they have silenced or ignored to survive in this system. When you act with genuine kindness, people often don't know how to react. You confuse them. They wonder why you don't play the same game, why you don't seem interested in power, status, or domination. In a world where success is often defined by control and influence, your refusal to participate in that kind of power dynamic is radical. It's revolutionary. It makes you an outlier in a culture that rewards selfishness and punishes weakness. And because of that, your kindness may be met with resistance. Some people will reject it, not because they think you're wrong, but because your presence forces them to confront uncomfortable truths. It illuminates their own emotional walls, their fear of being vulnerable, their reluctance to show weakness or open up. Your way of being reminds them that there is another way, more human, more honest, more compassionate. But it's a way they've spent years avoiding. Facing that reality isn't easy for everyone. You see, you can't control how the world responds to your kindness. That's not in your hands. You can't make people understand you, like you, or even accept you. But what you can do, what you must do, is remain true to who you are. Continue to choose kindness, even when it's misunderstood, even when it's mocked, even when you feel like you're going against the grain, because your kindness is not weakness, it's not naivete, it's not ignorance of how the world works. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the ultimate strength, the calm, grounded, unwavering strength of someone who knows they don't have to harden themselves to survive. Your kindness is a form of courage that many people don't recognize because they've been conditioned to see only aggression as power. But you are powerful, not because you dominate, but because you don't. Your kindness is a silent revolution. It's a mirror that reflects what others are afraid to acknowledge within themselves. When you give freely, when you show love without expecting anything in return. Reason 4. Kindness is often perceived as a vulnerability, an open door that invites exploitation. When you make the conscious choice to be kind, you are not merely performing a social act. You are creating emotional space, revealing a softer, more open part of yourself that many people simply don't know how to handle. In a world that rewards coldness, toughness, competitiveness, and radical independence, being genuinely kind, with no strings attached, no hidden agenda, no demand for reciprocity, can be misread as a sign of weakness. This isn't because you're naive or unaware of how the world works, but because your willingness to give, to care, and to be emotionally present is often filtered through the lens of a society that places value on dominance, control, and self-interest. People who do not understand the language of pure kindness tend to interpret it through their own limitations. They don't see generosity as strength. They see it as something to be used, something to be taken advantage of. What you offer from a place of love, from an open heart without conditions can be misunderstood by others as an opportunity, a fertile ground to manipulate, to drain, to consume. What many fail to grasp is that being kind does not mean being boundaryless. It doesn't mean you are incapable of saying no. But the mere act of opening up your emotional space makes others curious, and unfortunately, not everyone approaches that curiosity with respect. Many are not prepared or willing to reciprocate the same level of emotional investment. As a result, your kindness can become a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's a gift. On the other, it can make you a target for those who see giving as an invitation to take as much as they can, without any concern for how it affects you. Over time, this can become exhausting. People begin to expect your support, your time, your energy, as if it's their right to receive it. And when that happens, they stop seeing your kindness as something sacred. Instead, they treat it as something they're entitled to, something automatic, something that doesn't cost you anything, but it does cost you emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. Your willingness to trust others can be weaponized against you. Those who do not comprehend the true depth of kindness might use your generosity as a tool to further their own needs, never once considering the emotional toll it takes on you. And this leads to a slow, internal erosion of your energy. Because while your intentions are pure and rooted in sincerity, the lack of respect from others can leave you feeling used, depleted, and sometimes even betrayed. Kindness, then, becomes a battlefield, a test of strength between your desire to give and your need to protect yourself. It becomes a quiet, internal struggle where your soul wants to connect, but your mind starts to build walls to keep from being hurt. The hardest part of it all is realizing that your kindness, which you offer so freely and without reservation, isn't always understood in the way you meant it. Some people don't see the bravery behind your actions. They only see an opportunity to take more. While you're offering your time, your energy, your presence with no hidden motive, others interpret it as a signal of weakness. They don't see that it takes courage to be open in a world where most people have armor on. They don't recognize the strength it takes to keep your heart soft when so many choose to harden theirs. And because they can't comprehend that, they misread your kindness as a failure to protect yourself. This misunderstanding becomes dangerous. Those who seek one-sided relationships where they receive and never give are magnetically drawn to kind people. They see your emotional generosity as something they can exploit endlessly, without ever questioning how their actions affect you. And it's a painful truth that often comes with choosing to give without expecting anything in return. The true price of kindness is not measured in how many thank yous you receive, but in how often your time, your energy, and your emotional labor go unnoticed, unappreciated, or worse, disrespected. The real challenge, then, is not whether or not you should be kind. The challenge lies in learning how to protect that kindness, to honor it, to make sure it doesn't become an open wound for others to poke at. Being kind doesn't mean closing yourself off. It means being wise enough to know who deserves access to your emotional world. It means guarding your heart, not locking it away. In choosing the path of kindness, you learn that vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is bravery. It means showing up as you are, without pretense, without armor, without masks, and allowing others to see your true self. But despite your best intentions, people don't always respond to this openness with the respect it deserves. In fact, many see it as an opportunity to take what they want without giving anything back. When you act with kindness, you are giving more than just thoughtful gestures. You're offering your time, your presence, your energy, and sometimes even a piece of your soul. But true kindness, by its nature, asks for nothing in return. That's what makes it pure. That's what makes it real. The paradox, though, is that because it expects nothing, people often believe it costs you nothing. And that's where they're wrong. Here lies the danger. Those who do not understand what it means to build a relationship based on mutual respect and emotional reciprocity will never comprehend the value of what you give. Their lack of understanding becomes a blind spot, and in that blindness, they begin to take without ever thinking about what it costs you to give. And when that happens, when your kindness is met with indifference or entitlement, the emotional exhaustion begins to set in. Even if you never intended to feel used, it starts to creep in, quietly, slowly, until one day you realize that you've been giving from a well that hasn't been replenished in a long time. That's why it's essential to understand your kindness is not an infinite resource. You cannot keep pouring from yourself without limits. You may not notice the cost immediately, but over time, the lack of balance begins to weigh on you. You start to feel like a permanent source of comfort for others, someone people go to when they need something, but never someone they consider giving back to. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that your kindness should always be available, that it's your duty to be there for everyone. But the truth is, your efforts should never be taken for granted. Your kindness is not a public service. It is a gift, rare, meaningful, and deserving of respect. Some people will assume that if you're nice once, you'll always be available. They think of your emotional generosity as a bottomless pit, a safe space they can return to again and again without ever giving anything back. But what they fail to realize is that even the kindest hearts have limits. You cannot continue to offer what you never receive without that imbalance eventually breaking something inside you. Respect for your kindness must be mutual. Only then can you continue to give without emptying yourself in the process. Don't mistake kindness for helplessness. Being kind doesn't mean you're weak, and it doesn't mean you're willing to accept mistreatment. If you don't protect it, kindness can be seen as fragility. But the reality is, it takes immense inner strength to remain kind in a world that doesn't always appreciate it. The lesson is clear. You don't need to stop being kind. You don't need to change who you are. But you do need to be wise about how you give. You need to recognize the moments when your kindness is no longer being honored. It's not about shutting people out. It's about knowing when to walk away from those who drain you. Kindness is a beautiful gift, but like any precious offering, it must be given under the right circumstances, to the right people, those who truly understand its value. Only then will your kindness become an act of strength, not a sign of vulnerability. Reason number 5. People often mistake your kindness as a sign that you will always be available for them. This misunderstanding can lead them to take advantage of your time, your energy, and sometimes even your emotional capacity. True kindness is frequently accompanied by a selfless nature, a genuine willingness to prioritize the needs of others over your own. And while that may be noble, it can also lead to serious misconceptions. When you consistently show up for others, they may unconsciously begin to assume that you will always be there, regardless of your own responsibilities or emotional state. They begin to expect that no matter how busy or overwhelmed you may be, you will always have a moment to listen, a solution to offer, or a hand to lend. But what they fail to understand is that kindness does not equate to unlimited availability. Being kind does not mean being on call 24/7. As this pattern continues, those who benefit from your kindness start to take your presence for granted. They grow accustomed to your support, assuming that you will always pick up the phone, answer the message, or drop everything to assist them, without considering the weight you might be carrying yourself. This creates an unbalanced dynamic, where your time and emotional energy are constantly being depleted to fulfill the needs of others, while your own needs are quietly pushed aside. This imbalance becomes even more problematic when the people who rely on you fail to reciprocate. When you're going through your own struggles, they may not show the same level of interest or effort to be there for you. Instead, they reappear only when they need something. The relationship becomes transactional, and you are left feeling drained, unseen, and underappreciated. Eventually, this one-sided effort starts to take a toll on your spirit. You begin to feel like you're giving far more than you're receiving. You wonder why no one notices your sacrifices, or why your emotional labor goes unacknowledged. It becomes a cycle of exhaustion and silence. What's worse, without clear boundaries, people will continue to ask for more. More of your time, more of your energy, never stopping to wonder if you're okay, if you're tired, or if you simply need a moment for yourself. Kindness should never be confused with personal sacrifice on a daily basis. You are not obligated to prioritize everyone else above yourself, and doing so is not a badge of honor. It's a road to burnout. If you don't learn to say no, if you don't learn to set healthy boundaries, you run the risk of emptying yourself until there's nothing left to give. And when that happens, it doesn't lead to more appreciation. It leads to resentment and emotional fatigue. Balanced relationships are rooted in mutual respect, where both people are aware of what the other can offer and what they need in return. If you don't communicate your own limitations, people will assume you have none. They will continue to take from your well without realizing that it's running dry. It's important to remember there is absolutely nothing wrong with taking care of yourself first. In fact, it's essential, because only when you are grounded, rested, and emotionally whole can you continue to be a genuine source of light and support for others. Healthy kindness is sustainable. It doesn't leave you empty or resentful. But when your kindness is misinterpreted as infinite access, a harmful cycle begins, one that isn't always fueled by bad intentions, but by social conditioning and unconscious expectations. We live in a society that subtly encourages the belief that kind people are always available, always helpful, always ready to serve. And in this framework, your kindness becomes a resource for others to exploit, without them ever questioning the toll it might be taking on you. This lack of boundaries can manifest in many forms, from people repeatedly dumping their emotional problems on you without ever asking how you are, to assuming you'll always be the one to step in and help solve their crises. Over time, these expectations not only drain you emotionally, but they rob you of your capacity to focus on your own journey. It's not just your time that gets lost, it's your sense of self. When you are constantly being pulled into other people's needs, you start to forget who you are outside of that role. You stop being seen as a whole human being, and instead become the person everyone leans on, the rescuer, the helper, the listener. And in the process, your autonomy slips away. People, often unknowingly, begin to see you only through the lens of what you offer them. They forget, or never consider, that you too are a person with boundaries, dreams, pain, and desires. And here lies the deeper problem. When you don't manage this dynamic, you may start to believe that your worth is tied solely to what you can do for others. This internal narrative tells you that if you ever stop giving, you'll stop being valued, that if you set a boundary, you'll be abandoned. So you continue to overextend, not because you want to, but because you're afraid of what will happen if you stop. You end up trapped in a role where you're no longer free to be yourself. You're constantly performing, constantly showing up, constantly trying to meet expectations that were never yours to carry in the first place. And what's tragic is that the people who don't understand healthy boundaries rarely acknowledge that you, like anyone else, need time to rest, to reflect, to pursue your own passions. The more you neglect your own needs to meet theirs, the more depleted you become, and the less energy you have to nurture what truly matters for your personal growth and fulfillment. Yes, kindness is a beautiful gift, but your ability to give is directly tied to your own well-being. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot support others authentically if you are constantly running on fumes. And if you continue giving without limits, what once felt like an act of love begins to feel like a burden. Over time, this dynamic becomes emotionally harmful. What started as generosity morphs into frustration. You become an emotional dumping ground for others, but you're rarely given the same opportunity to release or be heard. The exhaustion accumulates, and you start to question your own value, not based on who you are, but on what you provide. And that is a dangerous place to be, because the more you give without receiving, the more invisible you feel. You aren't being consumed by a lack of kindness, but by a lack of reciprocity. The people around you may not even realize this is happening, but just because they don't see it doesn't mean it's not real. When people only see you as someone who gives without limits, they might unconsciously begin to use your generosity as a crutch, and the relationship becomes parasitic, not necessarily out of malice, but due to an ignorance of where the lines should be drawn. And often, it's you who failed to draw them, out of fear of seeming unkind. But setting boundaries is not the opposite of kindness. It is the affirmation of your worth. Saying no when needed doesn't make you less generous. It makes your generosity more intentional, more sustainable, more real. True kindness isn't about being endlessly available. It's about giving from a place of strength, not depletion. Your light is not meant to flicker and fade because others keep taking from it. It's meant to shine steadily because you've learned how to protect it. Boundaries are not walls. They are self-respecting guidelines that ensure your kindness remains a gift, not a burden. Learning to manage the tension between kindness and availability is essential to maintaining healthy, balanced relationships. Genuine generosity must be grounded in the awareness that you have the right to set limits. Your kindness is valuable, not because of how much you give, but because of the intention and love behind your giving. Only when you recognize this intrinsic value can you escape the trap of constant sacrifice. Without boundaries, people grow used to your availability. They begin to lean on you in ways that aren't fair. And this dependency doesn't just burden you emotionally, it steals your opportunities for personal growth. It sidelines your goals. It robs you of time you could be using to explore, to rest, to dream. And when your life is constantly shaped by what others expect from you, you lose touch with what you expect from yourself. Eventually, you no longer have the time or space to grow as a person. Relationships without reciprocity or respect become shallow and exhausting. And while your kindness might be what draws people in at first, over time, they stop seeing it as a gift. It becomes a given, something they expect rather than appreciate. That's why it's crucial to understand. Kindness must flow both ways. It is not a one-way street. Healthy connections require mutual respect, and that includes respecting your limits. You have to teach people how to treat you, not by being harsh or distant, but by making it clear that your kindness comes from a place of strength, not weakness. This doesn't mean you stop being kind. It means your kindness includes kindness toward yourself. It means honoring your own needs with the same compassion you offer others. And yes, some people may resist when you begin to set these boundaries. But real respect is born not from endless giving, but from balance, from authenticity, from being seen and valued not just for what you do, but for who you are. So next time your kindness feels like it's being disrespected, remember this. Your kindness is a gift, but it's also your responsibility to protect it. It's not about closing your heart or refusing to help. It's about helping in a way that also honors you. True strength doesn't just lie in giving. It lies in knowing when, how, and to whom you give. It lies in giving without losing yourself. And if this message resonates with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Leave a comment and tell me which part touched you most, or share your own experience. Like if you found it valuable, subscribe for more content like this, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Keep taking care of yourself. Remember, kindness is a powerful force, but so is self-respect. See you next time.
Throughout life, we all reach a point where we stop and ask ourselves, is this all there is? For many, this moment arrives around the age of 40, and that is no coincidence. It is the age when the masks we have worn for years begin to fall away, when the illusion of what we once thought would bring us happiness starts to crumble, and when the call of the soul becomes impossible to ignore. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He did not see this crisis as a problem, but as an opportunity, an opening, a doorway to something greater. He believed that true rebirth, the real beginning of life, does not occur in our youth. It happens when we dare to uncover who we truly are, when we find the courage to strip away the layers of conditioning and expectations that have shaped us into something we were never meant to be. For years, we have lived with a borrowed identity. We became who we were told we should be. We followed the path that was laid out for us without questioning if it was truly ours. We studied what we were told would bring us stability. We surrounded ourselves with people who fit the image we wanted to project. From the outside, everything seemed fine. Life appeared to be on track. And yet, at some point, an emptiness began to creep in. At first, we tried to ignore it. We distracted ourselves. We buried ourselves in work, in family responsibilities, in the endless pursuit of productivity. We convinced ourselves that if we just stayed busy enough, the feeling would go away. But it didn't. The emptiness remained. It revealed itself in subtle ways, through a lack of enthusiasm, through emotional exhaustion, through the persistent sensation that, despite having done everything right, something was missing. Jung called this phenomenon the process of individuation, the journey toward integrating the true self. In the first half of life, we are taught to build a strong ego, to construct an identity that allows us to function in society. We learn to play the roles assigned to us, the responsible student, the devoted parent, the hard-working professional. We become masters of fulfilling expectations. But then comes a turning point, a moment when life demands something more from us. If we ignore this call, the unconscious will start sending us increasingly stronger signals. anxiety, dissatisfaction, a feeling of being trapped in a life that no longer feels like our own. For Jung, these symptoms were not problems to be eliminated, but messages to be deciphered. They were the psyche's way of telling us that change was necessary, that growth was waiting just beyond our resistance. This is the point where many people experience a crisis. They feel lost, as if they have taken a wrong turn somewhere along the way. They begin to believe that something is deeply wrong with them. But the truth is far more profound. What they are experiencing is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of something extraordinary. Rebirth is not a conclusion. It is an initiation. It is the opportunity to let go of everything that no longer serves you, to release the beliefs you have carried for years without ever questioning whether they were truly yours. It is a chance to rediscover what truly nourishes your soul, what sets your heart on fire, what makes you feel alive. But in order to get there, you must be willing to face your shadow. Jung spoke of the shadow as all those aspects of ourselves that we have repressed because they did not fit the image we wanted to maintain. The fear of rejection, the guilt we have buried, the desires we have denied, the emotions we have learned to suppress. But here's the truth. The shadow does not disappear just because we ignore it. On the contrary, it grows stronger. It manifests in the patterns we repeat, in the relationships that drain us, in the choices we make that go against our own well-being. Every time you feel that something is off in your life, every time you react in a way that even you don't fully understand, it is your shadow trying to emerge, trying to be acknowledged. But here's the real secret. The shadow is not your enemy. It is a part of you that is yearning to be seen, understood, and integrated. You cannot be reborn while still running from what makes you uncomfortable. You cannot start anew while clinging to a version of yourself that no longer represents who you are becoming. The process is not easy. It requires courage. It demands a willingness to sit with your discomfort, to question your assumptions, to dismantle the false sense of security you have built. But it is the only path to true freedom. Many people believe that the ultimate goal of life is to find happiness. They spend their days chasing fleeting moments of joy, believing that once they attain a certain milestone, a successful career, a stable relationship, financial security, or societal recognition, they will finally achieve the happiness they have been seeking. But is happiness really the ultimate purpose of life? Jung saw things differently. He believed that the true purpose of life is not mere happiness, but a deep sense of fulfillment, something far more profound and lasting. And true fulfillment is only found when you stop living according to the expectations of others and begin to align your life with your inner truth. This does not mean that you have to change everything overnight. It does not mean abandoning your responsibilities or making impulsive decisions. But it does mean that you must start listening, truly listening, to that quiet voice within you, the one you have ignored for far too long. Perhaps you have felt it, a lingering sense of discomfort, a subtle but persistent feeling that something in your life no longer fits. Maybe it's a relationship that feels more like an obligation than an authentic connection. Maybe it's a job that provides financial stability, but slowly drains your spirit. Or perhaps it's a way of life that aligns with what others expect from you, yet leaves you feeling empty inside. There are no easy answers, but there is one thing you can do. Start questioning. Begin to ask yourself, without fear, whether what you're holding on to truly belongs to you, or if you have merely carried it, because that's what you were taught to do. Reinventing yourself at 40 or at any age is not about starting over from scratch. It's about beginning to live with real intention. It's about taking ownership of your story instead of following a script you never wrote. It's about trusting your intuition, believing your own ability to guide yourself toward what truly matters. Jung believed that the most profound transformation occurs when we stop looking for answers outside of ourselves and instead turn inward. And when you do this, when you truly commit to self-exploration, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start attracting the people and experiences that genuinely align with your essence. Synchronicity, as Jung called it, becomes a natural part of your life. Opportunities appear at exactly the right moment. The puzzle pieces of your existence begin to fit together, not because you're doing everything right, but because for the first time you are living in authenticity. But this path is not for everyone. It requires courage. It demands that you let go of what no longer resonates with you. It asks you to accept that the life you have built may not be the life you truly desire. And that realization can be terrifying, but it is also the beginning of something far greater. The real question is, are you ready to discover who you truly are? When you start looking within, when you dare to challenge everything you thought you knew about yourself, something begins to shift. At first, it may feel like chaos, as if the foundation of your identity is crumbling. But this collapse is not the end. It is a necessary process of breaking down illusions so that you can rebuild yourself in a way that is more honest, more aligned, more real. Carl Jung believed that true transformation does not come from adding more layers to your identity. It comes from shedding what is not real. It comes from releasing what is not truly yours. It comes from letting go of everything you have unconsciously accumulated, everything that has distanced you from your authentic self. This process is not easy. It requires letting go of ideas that once gave you security, letting go of relationships that, though familiar, no longer nurture your growth, letting go of a lifestyle that no longer represents who you are becoming. But what most people fail to understand is that letting go is not about losing. Letting go is about making space. It is about creating the room necessary for something new to emerge. And that something new is not external. It is not another job, another relationship, another temporary fix. It is you, your true essence, finally given a chance to step into the light after being buried for far too long. One of the greatest traps on this journey is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of not being enough. Fear of taking control of your own life. Carl Jung spoke of this fear as a manifestation of the unconscious, an invisible force within us that tries to shield us from change. But here lies a great paradox. What truly harms us is not change itself, but our resistance to it. Life never stops moving. It is in a constant state of flux, an ever-evolving current that does not wait for anyone. If you cling to what no longer has life, if you hold on to things, people, or beliefs that no longer serve you, you will inevitably begin to feel trapped, stuck, as if you are merely surviving instead of truly living. Perhaps you have felt this at some point. The sensation that on the surface, everything appears fine. Your routine is in order, your responsibilities are met. But deep inside, there's an undeniable emptiness, a silent void that whispers to you in moments of stillness, a feeling that something within you knows there is more, that something greater is waiting for you, that you are meant for something beyond the familiar, but you don't know how to get there. That feeling is not a sign that something is wrong with you. Quite the opposite. It is a sign that you are ready to evolve. It is your unconscious mind pushing you toward the next step, urging you to grow, to expand, to become more of who you truly are. But this is precisely where most people get stuck. Instead of listening to this inner calling, instead of trusting that pull toward something new, they cling to the old. They convince themselves that it's too late, that change is too difficult, that it's safer to remain where they are, even if that place feels like a slow suffocation of the soul. And so, the years pass. They accumulate a life that feels less and less like their own. Jung had a radically different perspective on time. For him, time was not a straight line, not something that simply moved forward without purpose. He saw it as an internal process of maturation, of integration, of awakening. True youth, he believed, is not about age. It is about the ability to renew oneself, to allow transformation to happen over and over again. And this has nothing to do with how many years you've lived, but with how willing you are to reinvent yourself, to let go of outdated versions of who you are and step into a new reality. If you are at a point in your life where you feel the need for change but don't know where to begin, there is something crucial you must understand. Change does not happen externally. It is not a new job. It is not a new relationship. It is not moving to another city. These are only superficial shifts. True change is an internal transformation. It is a process of deep self-inquiry, of asking yourself difficult questions, of looking at your own reflection without fear, of facing what you truly feel in the depths of your being. And the key to this entire process lies in the shadow. Jung taught that the shadow is not something evil. It is not something to be eliminated. It is a part of you that has been repressed, ignored, or denied for too long. And if you do not recognize it, if you do not integrate it, it will continue to rule your life from the darkness. It will manifest as repetitive patterns, as relationships that frustrate you, as emotions that seem to come out of nowhere. The shadow does not disappear simply because you ignore it. In fact, the more you avoid it, the stronger it becomes. The only way to free yourself from it is to face it. What is it that truly scares me about myself? What aspects of my personality have I tried to hide? What emotions have I not allowed myself to feel? This is where many people choose to run. Because facing the shadow means acknowledging that there are parts of you that you have refused to accept. It means recognizing that you have made mistakes, that you have made choices out of fear rather than conviction, that you have allowed the world to define who you are instead of discovering it for yourself. But what most people fail to realize is that in confronting the shadow, we also uncover our greatest source of power. Because within the shadow, there are not only fears and wounds. There is also your authenticity, your raw creativity, your true essence. Think about the moments when you have felt truly alive, those moments when you have spoken with passion, when you have acted without fear of judgment, when you have felt deeply connected to something greater than yourself. Those moments were not coincidences. They were glimpses of your real self, moments when you were unfiltered, unconditioned, unlimited. And what Jung tells us is that you don't have to wait for those moments to come by chance. You can live from that place all the time, but to do so, you must be willing to strip away everything that is not truly you. This is the true rebirth. It is not about starting from scratch, but about starting with truth, the truth of who you are, the truth of what you truly desire, the truth of what you can no longer hold on to in your life. And this truth, though it may seem terrifying at first, is the only thing that will truly give you the peace you have been searching for all along. People who have gone through this process describe it as an awakening, like finally opening their eyes after years of being asleep. It is as if, for the first time, they can see everything with absolute clarity. Every decision they make no longer comes from fear, from obligation, or from a need to please others, but from a place of deep authenticity. And when this shift happens, everything changes. Your relationships transform because you are no longer chasing external validation. You seek real, meaningful connections. The opportunities that come into your life shift because you are no longer operating from a mindset of scarcity, but from a deep sense of certainty about your own worth. Your energy changes because you are no longer wasting it on sustaining a false version of yourself, one that was created to fit into a mold that was never truly yours. But let's be clear, this process is not instantaneous. It is not something that happens overnight. It is a journey, and like all great journeys, it requires patience, courage, and unwavering commitment. Every step you take in the direction of your true self is a step towards a fuller, more meaningful existence. And if you ever feel like it is too late to change, remember this. Transformation is always available to those who have the courage to face it. It does not matter how many years you have spent living a life that does not represent you. The only thing that matters is whether, today, you choose to take that first step towards your truth. And when you do, something extraordinary will begin to unfold. You will not only feel lighter, freer, and more aligned with yourself, but you will also start to notice how everything in your life begins to synchronize in ways that once seemed impossible. This is not coincidence. It is what Carl Jung referred to as synchronicity, the universe's way of affirming that you are on the right path. It is life responding to your decision to be authentic. There is no predefined roadmap for this journey, no checklist of steps to follow. The only real guide is your willingness to look inward, to ask yourself the difficult questions, to release what no longer resonates with you. And in doing so, you will discover yourself, not a new version of you, but the version that has always been there, waiting to emerge. And here's the magic. When you start living from a place of authenticity, the things that once seemed impossible begin to happen effortlessly, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You have stopped forcing yourself to fit into places where you do not belong. You have let go of the desperate need for approval. You have started trusting your own voice. And when you do this, something incredible happens. You become a magnet for everything that is truly meant for you. The right people will enter your life. The right opportunities will appear. Doors that once seemed permanently closed will swing wide open, not because you were suddenly lucky, but because you are finally aligned with who you were always meant to be. There is something crucial you must understand on this journey. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will be ready to accept your transformation. Some people will want you to remain the version of yourself they have always known, the version that is familiar, predictable, and comfortable for them. They may resist your evolution because it challenges their expectations, their perception of who you are, and perhaps even their own stagnant realities. And this is where many people hesitate. They feel an overwhelming fear of disappointing others, fear of rejection, fear of losing what they have built so far. But what life teaches us over and over again is that losing what is not authentic is not a loss at all. It is liberation. True growth requires shedding the layers of yourself that no longer align with who you are becoming. You cannot build a fulfilling, meaningful life if you continue to cling to what drains you, to what no longer serves your highest potential. This is one of the greatest challenges of personal rebirth. It is not just about discovering yourself, but about having the courage to stand firm in that truth, even when the world around you does not understand. And this does not mean fighting those who refuse to support you, nor does it mean desperately trying to convince others to accept your new self. Instead, it means living from a place of authenticity without apologies, without unnecessary justifications. Because when you do that, when you finally allow yourself to be who you truly are, you begin to attract the right people into your life. People who genuinely resonate with your energy. People with whom you do not have to pretend. People who accept and embrace you without conditions, without expectations, without hidden agendas. But here's the thing, this process does not happen overnight. As you change, you may experience moments of loneliness. You may realize that certain relationships you once considered essential begin to fade away. You may go through periods of uncertainty, where you feel as though you'll let go of the old, yet the new has not fully arrived. This is normal. It is part of the process. And the key to navigating this transition is patience. Patience to allow the transformation to unfold at its own pace. Patience to trust that, even if you cannot yet see the final destination, every step you take towards your authentic self is a step in the right direction. The journey of self-discovery is not about rushing towards a final version of yourself. It is about embracing the unfolding, trusting the unknown, and allowing the right things to fall into place naturally. Something fascinating happens when you start listening to your intuition. You begin to realize that it was always there, guiding you, whispering to you, sending you signals along the way. But for so long, you were too distracted, too busy trying to fit into external expectations to notice it. Carl Jung believed that intuition is the voice of the unconscious, the way our deepest self communicates, directing us toward what truly belongs to us. And the reason so many people feel lost is not because they lack a purpose, but because they have stopped listening to that inner voice. They have silenced their own knowing in favor of external validation. They have ignored the gentle nudges of their soul in order to meet the expectations imposed upon them by society, family, or even their own fears. But the truth is, that voice never disappears. It is always waiting for you to turn inward, to trust it once more. And when you finally do, when you choose to listen, to trust, and to follow its guidance, you will find that the path has been illuminated all along. Reconnecting with intuition is not an instant process. It requires dedication, awareness, and continuous practice. In a world filled with external noise, distraction, and societal expectations, learning to listen to that quiet yet profound inner voice demands patience. It requires the ability to filter out the chaos of the outside world and differentiate between fear, an impulse rooted in past conditioning, and true inner guidance, which comes from a place of wisdom and deep knowing. More importantly, embracing intuition means being willing to act on it, even when logic offers no immediate explanation for why something feels right or wrong. This is where synchronicity comes into play, a concept Carl Jung explored extensively. He discovered that when you align yourself with your true path, the universe responds in ways that seem almost miraculous. Suddenly, the right people appear in your life at the precise moment you need them. Doors that once seemed firmly shut swing open effortlessly. Opportunities that once felt out of reach materialize, as if by magic. But make no mistake, synchronicity is not mere coincidence, nor is it some mystical force beyond comprehension. It is the external manifestation of an internal transformation. It is the universe reflecting back to you the alignment you have created within yourself. It serves as confirmation that you are walking the right path. Yet, to experience these moments of flow and alignment, you must first take the leap of faith. You must trust your inner truth, even when there is no immediate, tangible proof that everything will work out. You must release the need for total control, the need for guarantees, and the illusion of absolute security. True security does not come from meticulously planning every step of your life. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you'll always have the ability to adapt, to learn, and to grow. Choosing to live authentically does not mean life will suddenly become free of challenges. There will still be moments of doubt. There will still be obstacles that test your commitment to yourself. However, the difference lies in how you approach these challenges. Instead of reacting from a place of fear, you begin to face them with confidence. Confidence that every difficulty is an opportunity to strengthen yourself. Confidence that every apparent loss is simply making space for something greater. Confidence that every experience, whether pleasant or difficult, carries a purpose, one that serves your highest evolution. One of the most profound lessons Jung taught us is that true transformation never comes from external sources. It is not something that someone else can give you. It is not something you can find outside of yourself. Real change is an awakening, a process of discovering what has always been within you. And this awakening is not bound by age, nor does it have a predetermined timeline. It can happen at 40, at 50, at 60, or at any point in life when you decide that you no longer wish to live according to a script that was never truly yours. What makes this process so powerful is that it does not merely shift your relationship with yourself. It fundamentally changes the way you experience the world. When you live in alignment with your truth, relationships are no longer spaces of dependency, but of genuine connection. Decisions are no longer made from a place of fear, but from a place of clarity and inner certainty. Life no longer feels like an endless series of obligations, but rather an authentic expression of who you are. When you begin to live from your truth, when you dare let go of everything that no longer represents you, you start to experience a deep, unshakable peace, one that does not depend on anything external. No, this is not a fleeting moment of happiness, nor is it a superficial sense of tranquility. It is something far more profound. It is the deep and unwavering certainty that you are exactly where you are meant to be. It is the realization that you no longer need to prove anything to anyone, that you no longer have to seek outside yourself for something that has always been within you. This does not mean that life suddenly becomes perfect. Challenges will still arise. Moments of doubt will still creep in. But the difference now is that you stand on a solid foundation. You no longer react from fear, but from awareness. You no longer get lost in relationships or situations that drain you because you have learned to listen to your intuition. You have come to understand that life is not something that simply happens to you. It is something that you create moment by moment, with every thought you think, every decision you make, and every action you take from a place of authenticity. This is a true rebirth. It is not about changing your external circumstances. It is about changing the way you live. It is an internal transformation that shifts everything, not because the world around you has changed, but because you have changed. You have stepped out of autopilot and begun to live with intention. You have stopped settling for things that do not fulfill you and started choosing from a place of self-love. You have stopped following the script that others wrote for you and have begun to write your own story. And the most beautiful part? This story is just beginning. It does not matter how old you are. It does not matter how long you have lived in a way that did not align with your true essence. The truth is, you can always start again. You can always choose a different path, one that is more fulfilling, more authentic, and more aligned with who you truly are. The only thing you need is willingness. The willingness to see what you have been avoiding. The willingness to let go of what no longer resonates with your soul. And the willingness to trust that within you lies a wisdom far greater than you ever imagined. And when you make that decision, when you dare live in full authenticity, something incredible happens. Everything begins to flow. The right people enter your life. The right opportunities present themselves. Doors that once seemed invisible suddenly appear and swing open. Not because they weren't there before, but because now you are able to see them. This is the moment to take control of your life. Do not wait for circumstances to change. Do not wait for someone else to give you permission. Do not wait until you feel completely ready. The path to authenticity is not something that happens overnight. It is a process a journey, a transformation that unfolds step by step. But the most important thing is to begin. And that first step can be as simple as making a decision, a powerful, life-changing decision. The decision to live for yourself, the decision to trust yourself, the decision to release fear and embrace the truth of who you are. If this message resonates with you, if deep inside you feel that the time for change has arrived, then I want you to take action right now. Leave me a comment below and tell me, what part of this message touched your heart? What are you ready to let go of? What truth are you prepared to embrace? What transformation do you feel is waiting for you just beyond your comfort zone? Do not keep this message to yourself. Share it with someone who needs it. Share it with someone who is going through a transition, with someone who is also ready to discover their truth, with someone who is standing on the edge of change but needs that final push. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell, because this is just the beginning. In this space, we continue exploring, we continue questioning, we continue diving deep into the knowledge that helps us awaken, because together, we can create a community of individuals who choose to live with authenticity, who choose to transform their lives from the inside out, who choose to be reborn at any moment they decide. The world needs more people who dare to live from their true essence, more people who have the courage to shine, to be themselves, to break free from what no longer belongs to them. And if you are here, if you have listened to this message until the very end, it is because there is a part of you that already knows this is your moment. So do not ignore it. Take the first step. Trust yourself. And remember, life truly begins the moment you discover who you are. I will see you in the next video. Share this message with those who need it, because together we can bring this transformation to more people. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for choosing to be authentic. See you soon.